What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we'll be looking at my current rest of season rankings, talking about which players have risen the most over the last 2 weeks. If you want to see my exact rest of season rankings, along with my weekly rankings and projections, you can find all that at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. And if you want some more free content, then I did make a TikTok a few weeks ago answering the questions that you guys submit. I'll be answering a lot more of those this week, so make sure you're following me over there so you don't miss any of that. Again, that's a link in the description box down below, or you can just search my name, Nick Zylak, and discover. All right, so we will get on to the biggest risers in my rest of season rankings in a second. But first, of course, have to start things off as usual, the stat of the day. Yesterday's stat was on a minimum of 20 targets. Deebo Samuel leads the league in average yak per reception. Who ranks second behind him? The answer is actually George Kittle, his teammate. That offense is absolutely set up to gain yards after the catch. Surprising so far, no one's gotten it right on YouTube and Twitter. I'm not recording this like super early in the morning or anything, but I'm sure someone will. And if someone does by the time I'm editing this, then I'll add them to the screen now. Today's stat. Through Sunday, only 5 running backs have at least 20 total targets. Maybe Austin Eckler gets there after the Monday night game, but through Sunday, only 5 running backs, at least 20 targets. Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Cordarrelle Patterson, Chase Edmonds. Who is the 5th? Okay, as usual, we'll start off on this video, this Tuesday video each week. We start off with quarterback and tight end because very little is going to happen at those positions throughout this short of a time frame that we're really going to need to go over. So we want to just do those quickly. Then we'll go over loads of running backs, loads of wide receivers. Yet again, nothing has really changed as far as quarterbacks are concerned. I dropped Fields. I know this is a risers video, but I did drop Fields a little bit. It's pretty clear at this point that the breakout isn't happening this season. It's going to have to wait into future seasons. He's not 100% ready, and the team is, I don't think, being smart, saying that Dalton's the guy, Dalton's going to be the starter when he's healthy. Like, that doesn't help your organization. Even if Fields isn't ready, he should still be out there. The best way to learn and become ready is to play, to get these reps with the starters. But it seems like their plan is going to be when Dalton is back, he's going to be the guy. That's going to downgrade Fields, of course. 2 risers, though. Sam Darnold, apparently better than Lamar Jackson on the ground, and then Daniel Jones. Honestly, though, like, it doesn't matter all that much when we're talking about this range. Basically, you've got your top 10. Those are your weekly starters. Beyond that, you're just looking at streaming options, so it doesn't really matter if I move Daniel Jones up a bit, Sam Darnold up a bit, which I did. It's all matchup based. You're still not going out there and starting Daniel Jones, starting Sam Darnold in just brutal matchups, right? We're still just looking for streaming options outside of that top 10. Similar story at the tight end position. Not a whole lot of movement, but 2 very noticeable increases this week, or I guess over these last 2 weeks, because again, in this video, I'm comparing back to week 3. So over these last 2 weeks, counting week 3, week 4, who has risen the most? Dawson Knox and Dalton Schultz are the 2 names at tight end. I have both of them now as tight end like 15-16 range, so high-end 2s, matchup based if they're both expected to be high-scoring games, which a lot of the time they will be, because Dawson Knox, of course, on Buffalo, Schultz, of course, on the Cowboys. They're going to just be in higher-scoring games. There are guys we can absolutely stream. There are guys that in a 12-team league, you can be starting each week right now. Now, Dawson Knox is going to be receiving less volume. He doesn't get as much usage between the 20s. But let's be honest, for tight ends, there are very, very few who get any sort of usage at all. But with Knox, he's got a very high role in the receiving game in the red zone. And that's so important for tight ends. We need that touchdown ceiling because it's Kelsey, it's Waller, it's maybe Kittle are the guys who can get there on just receiving volume alone, not counting touchdowns. And so everyone else is going to have touchdown upside. And Knox has a lot of it. He's got multiple touchdowns this season. He had 2 touchdowns last week. I believe a touchdown the week before. Maybe it was in week 1. Regardless, he's going to be good this season from a touchdown perspective. And this is just saying maybe his role is also going to increase between the 20s as well. But I don't expect that fully to happen. But Knox is definitely someone that like you're looking at, even in a 12-team league. You can maybe just be starting him every week. And then Schultz, he looks like he's past Blake Jarwin. in like the pecking order for tight ends, at least as of right now. He's getting usage in the red zone. He's getting designed looks. That's very important. These aren't just like dump offs that are happening after like the 5th read is done. He's getting designed screens. He's getting looks in the middle of the field. And so we can expect this volume to continue. And of course on Dallas, he's never going to be the primary person to take away. He's not even going to be the 3rd person to take away, right? He's like the 4th or 5th option for defenses to take away, especially when we have, you know, Michael Gallup returning. And it really does seem like he's past Jarwin there, even though he had like 15 fumbles this last week. Didn't lose any of them, but he fumbled like every single time he caught the ball. Doesn't matter. He's still the guy over there. But on to the positions you guys care about more. We'll start off with wide receiver. DJ Moore is up 12 spots to wide receiver 8. I've just basically just unleashed him in the rankings because the Panthers have unleashed him this season. We were a year early in the breakout, so I was predicting top 5 wide receiver season for DJ Moore last season. I've always been very high on his talent. He just hasn't really put it together until this season. This season, he's exploding. He's got a super high weekly ceiling. He's so clearly the best wide receiver on that roster. I'm very high on Terrace Marshall long term, and I think to close this season, he can be really good. He can kind of really take over Robbie Anderson. But DJ Moore is the guy, and he's very, very, very talented. He's someone that he's a league winner at this point. Like if he continues this production, you got him late enough to where he is a reason you're entering a championship run. So congratulations to everyone that drafted him. No, we're not selling high on him. Keep him if you got him. You can't really trade for him because no one's giving him away right now. But yeah, wide receiver 8 rest of the season right now. Odell up a lot to the wide receiver 28. Of course, had him lower because he was missing the start of the season. We didn't know exactly when he'd return. We didn't know exactly what he'd look like. He looks good. Obviously, he has the disappointing week this last week. I don't remember his exact stat line, but it wasn't fantastic. It was absolutely a dud. But if you look at the underlying metrics, he led the league in unrealized air yards. He was 5th in overall air yards. He's a guy that we know is going to get looks deep downfield. He, again, has looked strong. He increased his snap share again. Landry is out. Like, everything's pointing in the positive direction for Landry. He just didn't have a great stat line this week. But they missed a few times deep downfield. They missed on a shot play into the end zone. And so a lot of upside for Odell this season, especially while Landry remains out. And so, yeah, I think having him as like a mid-range to high-end wide receiver 3, that's like a really good spot for him right now. Michael Thomas, again, I mentioned this in every single Risers video. Every week he's going to slowly climb. So I have him right now, wide receiver 39. I don't have him super high. Like that's not like a super high ranking. Basically because we still don't know exactly when he's going to come back. And then when he does come back, this is still an offense that's played slow. Now, one thought that I had the other day was maybe they're playing, definitely they're playing slow because they don't have fantastic skill weapons behind Alvin Kamara. It's like Alvin Kamara only. And so they're playing slower, they're leaning on their defense and their ground game, and they're not letting Winston lose them the game in the passing game. Makes sense. When Michael Thomas returns, there's absolutely a chance that they kind of go away from that. Maybe they increase the pace a little bit. Maybe they increase their aggression a little bit because now they can throw to someone. I don't know if that's going to happen. It remains a risk factor. I don't know when Thomas returns. That remains a risk factor. And I don't know how good he's going to look because it's been a little while since he's looked fantastic. And so all those are risk factors as to why he's not like already ranked really high rest of the season. But again, every single week he returns or he gets closer to his return. And so he's going to go up in the rest of the season rankings. He's a guy that you got to kind of be looking at right now. Maybe the person who drafted him is like 0-4 after this week, 1-3, even 2-2 off 2 losses. They're a little bit desperate. They're a little bit concerned about their roster. They don't know when he's coming back. Maybe it's worth sending a trade offer for him. Jakobi Meyers up 8 spots to the wide receiver 40. I moved him down a hair to start the season because the offense looked really bad. We weren't 100% sure how Mac Jones was going to look, but they've been playing a lot better these last few weeks. And with the offensive line underperforming as much as they have, New England was expected to have a really good offensive line. That has not been the case. It has not been fantastic. They've been forced to throw the ball more than they'd like. They built this offense wanting to run the ball a ton, to use play action, to use these tight ends, and to not go into like 3 wide receiver sets, not to drop back and throw the ball 50 times. But it hasn't entirely been possible to run the game plan they wanted because not only has the line been bad, but Damian Harris has been bad as well. And then they haven't really been able to get Stevenson involved. They don't have anyone really else behind that. And so They've had to throw the ball more. Luckily for them, Mac Jones has looked really good. And Jakobi Meyers, we knew, was the wide receiver 1 in this offense heading into the season. He's performed that way. He's been phenomenal. Crazily enough, like the touchdown thing with Meyers is so odd. I mean, he's the wide receiver 42 right now in points per game. I believe half PPR scoring there. Only 3 wide receivers ahead of him have yet to score. He has. And he has 2 passing touchdowns in his career. He's got 112 receptions, 1,334 yards, has never caught a receiving touchdown. To this point in his career, he's never caught a receiving touchdown. That's going to change. He's not someone they look away from in the red zone. It's just like, it just hasn't happened. Obviously, a lot of that came under the season with Cam Newton when they just didn't throw to wide receivers. They didn't throw touchdowns. Everything was a rushing touchdown. And so he's only had a few games with Mac Jones. It's going to reverse course. He's going to score some touchdowns this season. And when he starts scoring and this production continues and Mac Jones develops every single week, yeah, Jakobi Meyers, this is why we were high on him in the offseason. He's going to have a good year. He's already having a pretty good year. So I want him, moved him up in the rankings. And also, I mean, they didn't have like a brutal schedule to start the season. But if you look at their upcoming schedule, they've got Houston, they've got Dallas, and they've got the Jets. So Dallas, good defense, but again, they're absolutely going to have to throw the ball. So that kind of negates that. Houston, bad defense. Jets, bad defense. Who do they have championship weekend? The Jaguars. So if you're interested in those matchups, Jakobi Meyers is someone you want. Speaking of the Jaguars, though, of course, they have that injury to Chark. Probably going to miss the rest of the season. I don't know. I think they actually just put him on the IR. Now I'm kind of like second guessing myself. I'm pretty sure they put him on the IR like right before I was recording this video. I think I saw that. But regardless, like we're expecting Chark to miss the entire season, or the rest of the season at least, with that broken foot. And so that's going to elevate the target shares of Laviska, of Marvin Jones, of course, like the tight ends, of course, James Robinson, hopefully. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But mainly, this is a really good thing for Laviska because we talked about, I don't know, maybe a week or two ago, how he wasn't the one. We thought there was a chance this offseason that he would develop into the number 1, but that he was like still a really talented player. And if he ever got the targets, he was going to be good in fantasy. Well, now they just eliminate one of their 3 clear wide receivers. Yeah, he's going to start getting targets. And also, he was getting so many targets like close to the line of scrimmage. This is going to allow them to incorporate him more downfield. And we saw that play out this last week. He had the 99 receiving yards on like 6 receptions. He has that huge like 50-yard reception. He had another really deep target that didn't hit. Now, if they start using him downfield, the upside gets unlocked. Because if he has 10 targets, but they're all within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, you can only be so good off of that. But if they're coming deeper downfield, that's a ceiling that we're unlocking. And hey, against the Titans this next week, that might be really, really nice. Maybe it's his breakout game. Jeudy also up 12 spots to the wide receiver 50. I had to tank him, obviously, because of the high ankle sprain. He was going to miss and still is going to miss significant time. But like Michael Thomas, every single week, Jeudy's going to increase in value because he's 1 week closer to returning, and he is the clear alpha in this offense when he does return. I'm not expecting him to return right now, but again, just going to slowly move up until he does. Curtis Samuel, similar situation, opens the season on the short-term IR, but he comes back this last week. He only played 25 snaps, but he had 4 targets, caught all of them. Dami Brown, I love long-term, did really nothing in Curtis Samuel's absence, and so because that's the case, I'm pretty sure Curtis Samuel's like just gonna be the number 2 in this offense. He's not gonna overtake Terry McLaurin. Don't worry about Terry McLaurin. He's gonna be a stud. But especially, with this Logan Thomas hamstring injury, we don't know how long he's gonna be out. And with Heineke being fine, not a great quarterback, but he's a capable quarterback, Curtis Samuel has some upside. So not a guy that's gonna like truly have a breakout season right now. Not expecting that to happen. But he's someone that we should be adding because he's very, very talented. He's gonna be working his way back, and he's gonna be the wide receiver 2 on a decent offense. A few other names that are worth mentioning, not guys that just shot up into like the 40s, right? But these are guys who have increased in the rankings, have increased in value, or going to increase in value moving forward. AJ Green, Quintez Cephas, Van Jefferson, Kadarius Toney, and Rashad Bateman. I don't think any of these guys are starting outside of deeper formats, so maybe 14 to 16 team leagues, maybe a 12-team league that has multiple flex spots, or I don't know, a 12-team league where you had some sort of draft strategy where you like don't have very many wide receivers, something like that. But in general, those are still guys that I want in deeper formats. Quickly going over each of them, why they've increased. AJ Green, of course, he is on the highest scoring offense in the NFL, and an offense that is just absolutely dominating this season. Kyler Murray is being absolutely incredible. And of course, Hopkins is going to draw the top coverage every single week. And so that's going to leave AJ Green with softer coverage. Cephas, he has stood out as the wide receiver one for the Lions for the time being. Maybe they're going to get some guys back from injury, but for now, Cephas is the number one. He should at least be owned again, not started, but owned. Van Jefferson, talented. They used draft capital. He was a second-round pick last season. He has plus athleticism. They clearly like him. They're giving him a really nice snap share. He's being used downfield. He should be owned, again, not started. Also, we're seeing Kadarius Toney and Bateman make their returns, I guess. Like, Toney missed a little time in camp. I don't think he was necessarily being benched to start the season because he was hurt. It was more maybe they just didn't want to use him. That was like a weird situation. The Giants are a weird organization, but like, I don't fully understand. I don't have like an explanation as to why he wasn't getting a lot of snaps. But if you watched that game this last week and you watched any of his tape in college, like, Toney is electric with the ball in his hands. All you got to do is just get him the ball, right? The one problem with him is like Daniel Jones obviously isn't like fantastic as a quarterback, but then they have so many players, not even just wide receivers. Like, they have Evan Ingram, they're going to have Saquon Barkley, plus a billion wide receivers. There's a lot of people to get targets, and so you're not going to see weeks when everyone's healthy that Toney's getting a ton of targets. So it's tough to start him, like I've said with all these guys. But he should be on. He's a first-round pick this season. He got a lot of workload last week, and he performed well, so you'd have to think they're going to keep using him. But again, a lot of mouths to feed. And then the last one, Bateman. I've got a lot of questions about Bateman. My problem with him is not the talent. It's just like, you know Marquise Brown's the one. You know Mark Andrews after that. You know they're going to run the ball a lot. And you know that Lamar Jackson is going to run it on dropbacks. So how many targets does that really leave Bateman returning from injury? Not that many. So yeah, he's a fine stash. But if you're in a 10 or a 12-team league, there are probably other wide receivers on the free agency list that are better than him or have more upside. It's a fine pick in deeper formats if you want to try and capture upside because you think he's going to take over as the one. I think that's very unrealistic to think it'll happen this season. So he's a guy we'll look for in the future. I'm personally not on him this year. Running back. We'll start off with Saquon. He's up 4 spots to the running back 7. He's been in on 86 and 89% of snaps in back-to-back weeks. He has 13 targets over these last 2 weeks. At this point, he looks fully healthy again. The team is obviously, like I just talked about 2 seconds ago, not great, and so that's going to hurt him. But it really doesn't matter for Saquon. When you have a running back that has his level of athleticism, his volume share of the offense, I think the offense holds him back from being like top 3, probably top 5. But I think he's a low-end one, mid-range one. I've moved him into the top 7. I think that's a really good spot for him. I don't see a case really for putting him into the top 3 right now, but I don't see a case for him being more in that like lower-end 1 to high-end 2 range. He's Saquon Barkley. He's back. The offense is good enough, I guess, to just get him enough of a workload each week, enough touchdown upside to where, yeah, he's like a mid-range one. James Robinson is up to the running back 14. It is wild that they like kept using Carlos Hyde as much as they were. Like, I think everyone who watches knows that James Robinson's the better running back. It was obviously an issue having Carlos Hyde there for Robinson's upside. They finally make Carlos Hyde healthy and active. Robinson goes out there. He plays 95% of snaps on Thursday night. He didn't have a high target share. I would not be concerned about that. That's just going to happen with running backs, right? Running backs aren't every single week going to dominate unless they're like Dalvin Cook when he's healthy and Christian McCaffrey. Like, there's just very few running backs who dominate every single week in the receiving game and on the ground. Robinson is going to have weeks, if he's playing 95% of the snaps, that he's got like 8 targets, okay? Especially with Chark going down. And so that's not something I expect to continue. I expect him to look good. I expect him to score touchdowns. He was a fantastic trade target earlier this season. that's done. You're not trading for him right now. No one's going to sell him to you unless they're like trying to sell high, in which case absolutely trade for him, because I just said, I mean, running back 14 rest of season, he's a low end 1, he's a high end 2 in that range. If someone thinks that like this was a fluke in production, capitalize on that, but I don't expect that to be the case. Kareem Hunt up 7 spots to the running back 19. He has 24 carries, 11 targets his last 2 games. He scored 3 touchdowns in 4 weeks. He's outscored Chubb by 5 points in half PPR. I obviously want to caution that like he is probably not going to have 5.4 yards per carry for the entire season. He's probably not going to score a touchdown in 75% of games, right? But he's seeing really nice weekly usage. And as I said in last week's running back start sit video, he's just someone that every single week, like I'm just going to feel good about him at running back 2. For the usage he's getting, I know he's going to have some duds. Every running back is going to have some duds. But at running back 2, totally fine with that if I'm getting the volume he's been getting. So I love him as a running back 2 every week. Honestly, at this point, it doesn't really depend on the matchup. He's just going to be a solid play there. Cordarrelle Patterson, up 28 spots to the running back 20. I've been conflicted with this one. Maybe I'll move him down a little bit more, but like he's been so good that it's hard to move him down from here. One thing is like this level of efficiency cannot continue. He's playing between 23 and 26 snaps every week. You know, I think 42% of snaps is his max. He's in that like 30 to 40 range, and he's somehow the running back 2 on the season. Like obviously he's being overly efficient. He has the 3rd most receptions of any running back. He has 4 total touchdowns. Again, playing like less than 40% of snaps most weeks. You know, most players getting 6 or 7 carries and 6 or 7 targets each week are going to be in that like 8 to 10 half PPR points range, not 18.6, right? This level of efficiency cannot continue. It's going to drop. But if he's going to finish, you know, in the top 5 in receptions, if he's going to be used in the red zone, he's still a valuable running back. So he's going to be moving forward, a guy like Kareem Hunt, where I'm like, I don't really care at this point what the matchup is. If I have him at this point, I'm playing Cordarrelle Patterson in the running back 2 spot unless I'm in like a standard scoring league. Obviously, he has less upside in that because you're not getting any points for those receptions, and that's a large part of his value. But in half and full PPR at this point, playing running back 2. I just wouldn't keep him on the bench anymore. Zack Moss up 23 spots to running back 30. I've talked about him a ton recently, why we had him low to start, but then why we were moving him up in the rest of the season rankings. And everything was confirmed this last week. He and Singletary are going to roughly split the touches, but it's Moss that's getting the high value touches. Moss that has more of a chance of a touchdown, and so he's more valuable. He's like a quality flex play each week. Definitely a better play when they're playing teams that are trash, right? And they can just run the ball a ton in the second half. Even though Buffalo's a team that I know they won by like 1 billion points this week, 1 billion points like a week ago, they're still a team that's going to keep their foot on the gas, right? When Buffalo gets up 25 points, in general, Josh Allen is still throwing the ball. They're still moving the ball downfield. And so I know that there was blowout run recently because have they allowed a point these last 2 weeks? I feel like they've won like 70-0 combined these last 2 games. But they're a team that unless they're up by like 40, they're going to keep pushing it. And so you like to see that because it means Moss isn't like getting benched, right? He's still going to be in there scoring touchdowns. Next up, we have James Conner up 8 spots, running back 35. I absolutely hate his floor. I absolutely hate that they're using him so much over Chase Edmonds because he hasn't been good. Like he's been very, very, very inefficient. Every time they give him the ball, it is a disadvantage to the team because Kyler's not getting a carry, Chase Edmonds isn't getting a carry, and Kyler's not throwing it. Those are all way more efficient than giving James Conner the football. But apparently they love him in the red zone, and they want to keep giving him usage on the ground despite the poor results. And so, again, I don't like him. I don't trust him. But I think you have to rank him in like these mid-30s because if he's going to get these touchdowns, he's going to get this usage on the highest scoring team in the NFL, he's valuable. Last 2 we'll talk about are Damian Williams and Chuba Hubbard. Both up, but I just want to mention like they're only up because the starters are hurt. And right now, I don't know the MRI results for Montgomery. So far, all I know is they're hoping it's a hyperextension. They don't think it's a torn ACL, but they don't know. So obviously, I don't know. I think we are probably going to find out maybe later today for me or tomorrow. So today for you guys. So we're going to know. But even if Montgomery, like he's probably gonna at least miss 1 week, right? Any missed time though for Montgomery, like you're gonna want Damian Williams. He's going to be good. He has like a small, I believe it was a quad injury. Don't quote me on that, but he has a small injury. It didn't seem major though. It seemed like he's gonna be fine for this week. But yeah, you just have to watch the news. Like if it comes out that Montgomery tore his ACL, obviously Montgomery's going to tank and Williams is going to like skyrocket in the rest of season rankings, but it just depends what we see. And then Chuba Hubbard again, he rose in the rankings. He's going to decline now that McCaffrey is going to be working his way back from injury. But another situation where we don't know the status of McCaffrey, it's like a double-edged sword of like you want McCaffrey back if you're the Panthers because you are 3-1, clearly a good team. They have playoff aspirations. They want him back, but he's Christian McCaffrey. He's such an important part of the offense that like it's hamstring. You don't want to rush him back from the hamstring. So I don't know exactly how long it's going to take for him to come back. It seems like 1 to 2 weeks he might be back. I heard a report that it could be like this next week. Maybe that seems a little bit aggressive, but it seems like it's a shorter term injury. Obviously he has that risk of re-injuring it. So you're not dropping Chuba Hubbard if like McCaffrey comes back and he crushes it and Chuba gets like 1 carry. You got to have Chuba Hubbard on your roster at this point because if that injury gets re-aggravated, that's a running back 2 every single week, pretty much regardless of matchup. So that'll do it for the biggest risers over the last 2 weeks. Next week, we'll look back to week 4 because next week will be week 6. So we'll look back who are the biggest fallers over that 2-week stretch, talking about the players who have dropped the most in my rest of season rankings. Again, you can see real time what those rankings are for every player. Use that and trade targets, use that to help you in the trade market. It's all on our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. And again, if you want even more free content, then I did start a TikTok a few weeks ago. I'm answering your guys' questions, and I'm going to answer a lot more of those this week. So if you've got questions, ask them over there. I'll try and respond to a lot of them in video format. And there's a link to that, of course, in the description box down below. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.